Today I'm going to be talking about the ethics of the death penalty. Should we have it? Should we not have it? Pros, cons, things like that. The first question we can dive into is what exactly is the death penalty? This is where someone's put to death by the state or federal government due to actions they've committed. There's a lot of actions that people can commit to be incarcerated in prison and jail today, but they don't all warrant the death penalty. So the question could be, what is some of the actions people commit to be convicted of the death penalty? Those being capital murder, treason, genocide, and espionage, although capital murder is one of the most common of those four that warrant the death penalty. Now you might ask, if you're convicted of capital murder, is your punishment automatically the death penalty? Typically, no. Once you're convicted of capital murder, if the government or the offense feels like the death penalty is warranted, they then have a second trial on if the death penalty is actually warranted for your punishment for your crimes you've committed. Another question that's typically asked is this decision state or federal? It is both state and federal that are allowed to administer the death penalty, although there are many states stepping away from the death penalty, and as time goes on, more and more states are not allowing the death penalty anymore as a punishment. Where are the prisoners held during when their punishment is death penalty? They are held on what is called death row. Typically, there's very little exercise, and they are often separated from the rest of the prison. The reason for this being that with them being on death row, knowing that their time of death is coming, they typically don't think there's much more punishment that can be administered to deter them from bad actions. So these are considered to be one of the more violent, more dangerous inmates in a prison, just because they already have the ultimate punishment coming their way. It's not uncommon for many prisoners to spend years on death row due to how many appeals they are allowed to have, and stuff like that. This is typically wears on their mental health and physical health as the inmate, and it's not uncommon to hear of people on death row having mental problems and or passing away due to other reasons while they're on death row. Another question would be, who carries out death penalties? The wardens and correctional staff are the ones that typically arrange the death penalty. There's also typically a doctor on hand that is there to call the time of death, but they typically are not the ones that actually administer the killing agent to the inmate. What are some of the pros of the death penalty? This would be that the family sometimes can find a feeling of retribution knowing that the person that did such a heinous crime is paying the ultimate price for that crime. Another one is the ultimate way to prevent reoffending. Obviously, if that inmate is no longer alive, they're no longer able to reoffend or do what they had done in the past. And also, prison overcrowding is a real issue that we're facing today, just with so many inmates. And that is why it's so easy in some of these states to get the lower offense criminals out of the prison and back on the streets, and why you see so many reoffendings. So this is just another way to help with prison overcrowding, because if they're there for the death penalty, it means they would typically be there for life without parole. It's just another bed that's taken up in the prison. It's kind of a gray area on how you should feel about it, but it does help lessen with overcrowding. Now, some of the cons with the death penalty is there's a chance, obviously, you're putting an innocent person to death. When we convict someone of such a crime, we are typically 99% sure that that person did that crime, but there's obviously been cases and reports of people being innocent and not have committing these crimes and been either A, put to death, or B, found out later and saved from the death row. The cost of the death penalty is also much more expensive than life in prison. Then there's also the lack of evidence that such a punishment deters people from committing the same crime. Typically, people that are going to commit these crimes are going to commit them regardless of the consequences. They already know that if they get caught, they're typically going to either be in life imprisonment or be put to death. So they are going to do them regardless of what the punishment is. And many argue that this is a violation of human rights. These are just some these are just some talking points that you can have about the death penalty and kind of see where you sit on the totem pole with it. Thanks.